Hi guys, welcome back. This is episode number 68, featuring the third and final part of my interview with the role-playing game developer extraordinaire, Mr. Timothy Cain. Now, in the previous two episodes, I talked with Tim about his early days as a programmer, and then his work on what is probably his greatest achievement, Fallout. Definitely one of my favorite computer role-playing games of all time. Really wonderful franchise. In this episode, I want to talk with Tim a little bit about Arcanum, the Temple of Elemental Evil, and then hear from him about this top-secret MMO he's been working on. A lot of exciting stuff. I know you're going to like it. So without further ado, here is Tim Cain.
There were a lot of surprises, some of them pleasant. I actually enjoyed playing the game, and I know some of my fans were disappointed when I said I actually enjoyed playing it. But I thought they did a good job of understanding what the universe was like and then setting a different kind of game in it. It was very much, it felt almost like an FPS RPG. But they understood special. I think they adapted that well to a first-person style RPG and a real-time RPG. I think they did a good job understanding the lore of the game. I think they got a lot of that done well. The tricky part of Fallout, I thought, was always the humor. So I find sometimes that's what I'm a little critical about. But humor is very personal and very subjective. So I've tended to keep all my criticisms of that to myself, because you honestly can't slight someone for not having the exact same sense of humor that you have. So Bethesda took it, and they own it in, both senses of the word. They own it, but they owned it. They made it something that Fallout 3 fits with Oblivion in their line of products, where I don't think Fallout 1 and 2 would have fit with their product line as well. I don't think I would have used as many of the same elements. I think it was a bit of a stretch to have the mutants out there. FEV was supposed to be, the forced evolutionary virus was supposed to be localized just to Southern California. So it was a bit of a stretch to have that way out on the East Coast. I would have come up with something completely different. I would have just said, it's a post-nuclear world. There's a million stories out there. Let Fallout 1 and 2 be that corner of the world, and we'll make a brand new one for this corner of the world. Now, having said that, I think Fallout Vegas is an interesting idea because it's close enough to the New California Republic that you can do a lot of fun stuff with that. And that makes sense because it's right next door to where Fallout 1 and 2 took place. But I think Fallout 3, they probably should have just taken it off in a different direction a little more. I started Troika with Leonard and Jason, and we kind of said, after doing Fallout as a post-nuclear game, we really wanted our turn at making a fantasy game. But because of the nature of how we are, we of course couldn't make a typical fantasy game. We needed some kind of twist. And what we decided to do was, rather than set our fantasy game in the 14th century, which almost every fantasy game seems to be mired in, which is wagons and horses and castles and moats, we said, well, what if an industrial revolution happened in a world like that, and it was the 18th century, and you were getting locomotives and steam-powered engines? How would that affect dwarves and elves and orcs? And I think it was Leonard Borarsky immediately went, well, the orcs would be used as the slaves of all the capitalist machinery. And so we kind of ran with that. We said, we went down each race. What would the elves do? What would the dwarves do? What would the orcs do? And we worked it out, and we kind of it sprang together. It sprang to life very quickly. Arcanum kind of, within a month or two, had fully formed into this Victorian-feeling society that was this weird mix of 18th century technology and magic. And we had a lot of fun with that. And again, part of it was just the three of us for about 6 months. And so we could move quickly. We were nimble. We actually put together a prototype. I think we hired one other programmer for that. But we put together a prototype for Sierra that had an entire level done. And we had magic working. And we had moving shadows. Fortunately, I don't think that made it into the game. But we had a lot of stuff working. And it was kind of a testament to how fast you could move when it was just a small group. And I tell people sometimes that there's more of me in Fallout and Arcanum than in any other game I made, because it was made with a small group. And so it's not as, the part of me that you feel in the game is not as diluted as it is in games that are made with a bigger group of people. It's interesting about that game. I loved making that game. We had such a good time making it. It was such a good group of people. Again, it was only about a dozen people who worked on it. We were originally given 18 months, and I had done a proposal for a game that didn't include all the classes. I think I got rid of the Druid and the Paladin, maybe the Bard, because they were just tough to do. But Atari wanted all the classes in there, so I kind of gave in. I probably shouldn't have done that. So we're really stressed trying to make a AAA title in 18 months, reusing the Arcanum engine, but we decided we wanted 3D characters, and we wanted to change a lot of technical features in the engine. And then about a year into it, so we were maybe 6 months out, which sounds like a long time, but we were only 2/3 of the way through, D&D version 3.5 came out. And suddenly we were in a really bad bind in that we were about to, in a few months, put out a game based on 3.0, but 3.5 was out. So we asked them for some extra time, and they gave us, I think, 2 months. So we had 20 months instead of 18. And we scrambled, and we pulled out mechanics and replaced them with the 3.5. And also at the same time, Atari wanted us to remove some things. We pretty much gutted the little town of Nulb because there was a lot of evil, adult-oriented areas that they just didn't want to approve. So we removed a lot of things that were in that town. So in hindsight, while I loved making the game didn't really end up what I wanted it to be. And I was kind of upset that it shipped with the bugs it did, because we actually fixed some of the bugs, but we weren't allowed to put out a patch because QA had already been disbanded. So we couldn't get a patch approved, so we had to, we weren't allowed to release an unauthorized patch. So I felt bad that people were trying to play our game, and we had fixes for it that we couldn't release. I've been working on it for 5 years, so I'm at NCSoft. We're actually at a studio they have in Aliso Viejo called Carbine. I've been here for 5 years. I'll be here, actually it'll be exactly 5 years in August of 2010. So right there I can say that I've worked on this game longer than any game I've ever developed. Fallout was the longest development time, which was 3.5 years. So I've already got that beat by a year and a half. What I think is fun and different about it is even back while I was making Arcanum, I started getting addicted, and I'll just say that flat out, to MMOs. I started playing EverQuest, and I would play that every night. During the entire development of Arcanum, I was going home and playing EverQuest every night. And so that really kind of started to affect the way I thought about RPGs, and especially the fact that since you're playing it with so many other people, not just your immediate friends, but so many other people, that the world's having all these changes made that you're not responsible for. And I like that. I just don't think that maybe MMOs have taken that to the extreme they should. Most of them really try to reset the world back to its base state as quickly as possible. And that may not always be the best thing for an MMO to do. So I'm getting to try out some ideas of mine to not make such a traditional MMO. But it's a different genre altogether, and I'm enjoying some of the challenges of trying to make, because I'm really trying to make this an RPG. I think a lot of MMOs lighten up the RPG values a lot. I'm trying to make this especially for the hardcore RPG players, something that they can really sink their teeth into. But at the same time, I want casual players to have fun with it as well. A lot of MMOs don't provide any means for you to roleplay like that. They don't give you enough ways of customizing yourself, of letting you interact with NPCs, of letting you do things that have consequences to your character, so that you can tell people, well, I've decided I'm a pacifist, or I'm going to play this game, I'm going to steal everything that's not nailed down. I don't think there's enough opportunity in MMOs for people to roleplay. I'm hoping this will change. I've hired a systems designer, and her title is social systems design. So she's in charge of making sure that we have social game features that encourage people to kind of go beyond combat and realize that you're playing this game with thousands of other people. There's different ways of interacting with them besides just joining up with a few of them and going and killing things to take their stuff.